Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Test Those Breasts podcast. I am your host, Jamie Vaughn. I'm a retired teacher of 20 years and a breast cancer thriver turned staunch, unapologetic, loud supporter and advocate for others, bringing education and awareness through a myriad of medical experts, therapists, caregivers, and other survivors. A breast cancer diagnosis is incredibly overwhelming with the mounds of information out there, especially on Dr. Google. I get it. I'm not a doctor, and I know how important it is to uncover accurate information, which is my ongoing mission through my nonprofit. The podcast includes personal stories and opinions from breast cancer survivors and professional physicians, providing the most up-to-date information at the time of recording. Evidence, research, and practices are always changing, so please check the date of the recording and always refer to your medical professionals for the most up-to-date information. I hope you find this podcast a source of inspiration and support from my guests. Their contact information is in the show notes, so please feel free to reach out to them. We have an enormous breast cancer community ready to support you in so many ways. Now let's listen to the next episode of Test Those Breasts. Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to this episode of Test Those Breasts. I am your host, Jamie Vaughn, and today I am super thrilled to have my breasty breast cancer friend that I met on LinkedIn last January. Her name is Kommah McDowell, and Kommah is a passionate patient advocate, speaker, and healthcare leader dedicated to empowering patients and advancing cancer care. A survivor of triple-negative inflammatory breast cancer, she serves as a national patient speaker for City of Hope, with past roles in major research initiatives and advocacy organizations. Featured in Oprah Magazine, Forbes Books Radio, and the Los Angeles Times, Kommah holds a Master's of Science in Leadership and Management, is an inspirational keynote speaker, and the author of Silver Lining, Cancer Was the Best Worst Thing That Ever Happened to Me, and String of Pearls 10-week devotional. Residing in San Diego County with her husband and son, she continues to inspire and lead in the fight for patient-centered care. Hello! Finally, Kommah,
Hello.
we got this going on.
I know. So glad to be here.
Yes,
So excited.
Me too. My audience knows that I took a little hiatus. Starting back in February. I had been, releasing a podcast episode every week like clockwork since June of 2023. And last February, I had to forgive myself and put it aside for a minute. And I'm back, and I'm just so thrilled that you and I are still connected. We met on LinkedIn. You were with another company at the time.
Yep.
And, but I really wanted to interview you because of your backstory, of course, of breast cancer and your advocacy work. How are you doing? What's going on with you?
I'm great. And I'm so proud of you for taking time for you and realizing, let me stop and pause to make sure you stay healthy and strong so that you can, push on and then continue, pick up the advocacy work that you're doing. So I want to just say, well done, my friend.
Well, thank you. I know it's really hard for, especially women, it seems like it's really hard for us to put things aside and just recognize that, it's okay. And, I had a friend of mine that said, look, Jamie, Netflix has series and they take breaks. They have seasons,
Yes.
and it's okay for you to have a season, And
Absolutely.
so, but I will tell you that this is where I shine in a lot of different ways, not just doing podcasting. I'm not a pro or anything like that. I just really thoroughly enjoy having conversations with people like you and, amplifying what it is that people are doing in their survivorship and interviewing doctors and, therapists, so it's where I feel best. And
Yes, I know.
so right now I'm pretty happy about that.
All right. Now that's exciting. That resonates with me so much. Currently I am now celebrating 20 years of survival this year.
Wow.
Which is amazing. So knowing my story and to know that I'm here, I'm 49 years old. I'm not ashamed of telling anybody that because I was told I may not see 30. So to stand here now at 49 years old, I am ecstatic about that. And so at this point in my life, I'm trying to get back into advocacy in a way that is different than when I was first diagnosed. When I was first diagnosed, you're beating the ground and the streets trying to just make people pay attention. My story, when we go into that, is a lot about being seen and being heard as a young woman diagnosed with breast cancer. And excuse me, before I was diagnosed, as a woman with symptoms of breast cancer that were ignored. And so I came out of treatment with this passion to just, knock on every door, let everybody know. Well, now 20 years later, I've moved into a different phase and season, and I'm more into advocacy where I'm working with in the research realm. I'm working with policy. I'm working with just trying to approach it in a different manner, only because I've been around for a little while and I've been through a few more things, and just maturity in the process and understanding how things are working and trying to really make small movements that make huge impacts.
Right.
And so I am now, and we're just going to jump into my story. Sorry. So I
Well,
wrote
I
a
was going
book.
to ask you, I mean, this is really interesting to me because you were 29 years old when you were
Yes.
diagnosed. And it's interesting because I just interviewed someone who was also, I believe she was 29 years old.
Oh,
And it was either 27 or 29. And the story of people who are young,
hmm
it's such a myth that
yes.
only older people can get breast cancer. I mean, yes, I was
Right.
54, right? It's usually around when you're in your 50s, right? Or more. But more and more, there just seems to be younger women
Yeah.
getting breast cancer. And that must have been so frustrating telling
hmm
people and having to advocate for yourself at such a young age.
Absolutely.
So what I want to ask you is, before you were diagnosed,
hmm
who were you? What made you be able to speak out, start speaking out? Who
hmm
was Kommah before that?
Well, it's so funny because I've always been one who I'm a people person. So that's one thing, but I'm very much, see, people say you're going to be a lawyer because you just go after things and you just keep digging. You're resourceful, you get it done. And so I have this drive in me, and I used to, when I was younger, I'm like, why do I have this drive? Like, for some people, it could be too much because they're like, you can bulldoze your way through things. But I have this natural drive to just get things done. If it's a task, I'll get it done. By hook or by crook, I get it done. And coming up through school, I got involved in speech clubs and debate clubs, and I learned that, I actually can speak well in front of people. I'm not afraid of audiences. So then I started doing that, and I fell in love with the stage in that regard. And so before cancer, I was on this career path. I did not want to be a lawyer, but I did want to work in corporate America. And I wanted to be in a position that would allow for me to just engage with people, be around people. So not so much behind the computer, and I didn't really even know because I was still too young to even sort all of that out at the time. But I went to school for my master's in leadership and management. I chose that over a MBA. And so I had this drive and desire to engage, be a part, be with people, community, build relationship. And so that was me before. I was just driven. I was career focused. I did not want children. I was not, I was dating, but I was career focused.
Mhm.
I was just driven to succeed, if you will, in this a career world. I want to call it a rat race, but that was me.
Yeah.
And everyone who knew me, they're just like, oh, she's go, go, go. She's about business. And so that was my life before cancer.
So then you turned 29. Tell me, walk us through what the symptoms were you were just like, okay, something's not right. What's going on there?
Right. So coming out of Christmas, so I was 28. We were coming off of Christmas and heading into New Year's, and I found something under my right arm, and I was like, this feels a little funny, and it was just a little nodule, like a marble. And so I went to the doctor to ask questions about it. And I had a female primary doctor at the time. And she was like, oh, you're fine. It's nothing. It's just a cyst. And I was like, okay, fine. So I left the doctor. I was great. Then the next week, all of a sudden I had something else. It was like it was hurting. And I was like, I'm uncomfortable. Like, what is this? She was like, it's okay. It's a cyst. And I'm like, okay. So then the next week, it's hurting a little more. And now I'm feeling more like a sharpness. And then there's like this thickness coming in. And I'm like, okay, this is not normal. What is this? And she's like, it's okay. Now, mind you, I'm going back to the doctor every time asking the questions. So then finally, we're in the middle of January, a couple weeks into January, and I go back and I say, look, my nipple is starting to like invert, and that's not normal. Like, what's happening? I'm in pain. I feel this thickness. And she was like, it's okay. It's your hormones. You're young. You're too young to have cancer. So don't worry about it. And I said, well, can I get an MRI? Or not an MRI, I'm sorry, a mammogram. And at 29, they're not giving you a mammogram at 29. There is backstory there for me to have known to ask for that, really quick. Before that, I was temping when I was going to college for my undergrad. I would come home for the summer and I temped at USC Norris, and at City of Hope. And in my time temping there, those were both cancer research institutions. One of the things that I learned from them was cancer doesn't discriminate. And so if you find yourself in a position and you want to know and you need to know, you need to ask for certain tests. And so I knew about mammograms as a result of my experience there. So that's my backstory. So now fast forward, I asked this doctor at 29, I was actually 28, can I get a mammogram to verify what you're saying? And she was like, no. Well, I also learned back then that you should have PPO insurance, which is a policy that allows for me to make choices. Mm-hmm. And so I was okay. So when I got my first job, which I got PPO insurance, which I didn't even understand what that meant. But when it came down to this, I said, I want a mammogram, and my insurance allowed me to get a mammogram. Mammogram came back fuzzy. And she said, well, it's fuzzy. It's a little fuzzy. It's fine. There's no mass. You don't have cancer. So I was like, okay. So then I said, well, can we get an ultrasound? Because by the time the results came back from the mammogram, my right breast started growing. So now I have pain, I have thickness, I have growth, I have an inverted nipple.
All the signs.
Yes. And she's still telling me there's nothing wrong with me because I'm too young to have cancer. And so I said, okay, can I get a mammogram? They do the ultrasound. So we do the ultrasound, and then that comes back fuzzy too. And I'm like, what does this fuzzy mean? Like, how is that a diagnosis or a prognosis or anything? And so I was like, okay, that's not enough. And she says, fine, we'll do a needle aspiration biopsy. And I said, okay, what is that? And she was like, that's okay. We're just going to do it. It's really quick. Now, mind you, this is sitting in the doctor's office. She's frustrated with me because these two tests have come back basically inconclusive for her, fuzzy keyword. And now I'm still asking for her to do something. So she's like, fine, we'll do a needle aspiration biopsy. And I'm like, okay. She walks out the room and comes back in with a needle to do the biopsy. No prep, no, I'm about to do this for you. No lead it, nothing. She just walked out and came back in with a needle. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're about to do this. So she does a needle aspiration biopsy and she pulls back. She goes to pull back the needle and nothing happens. And she goes, And I said, well, what does mean? And she was like, oh, nothing. It's okay. You don't have cancer. You're too young to have cancer. And I said, that just didn't sit well with me. So she sent me on my way. I left. My right breast continued to grow. I became in more pain. The skin texture started turning red and changing. So all the signs of inflammatory breast cancer. So that's happening. And then a golf-sized lump, it wasn't a golf size at the time, but a lump started developing under my arm. And I couldn't even put my arm down. And I went back again and I said, you know what? I can't put my arm down. My nipples inverting, my skin color, and you see my complexion, my chest was red. And I said, this isn't normal. Does your breast do this? Because she's a female. And she was like, well, no. And I said, well, can you then do me a favor? And this is after 6 months. Take out what is not wrong with me then. Because by the time we got here, my right breast was double the size of my left. And I had all these symptoms and I was in excruciating pain. And I said, just remove then what's not wrong with me. Since you don't think it's cancer, since you think it's my hormones, if something is growing, you should be able to take it out. And I went to see a surgeon. The surgeon agreed with her. He agreed there was nothing wrong with me. He reviewed the ultrasound, he reviewed the mammogram, and he agreed there was nothing wrong with me. And I said, well, I don't care. You guys don't have to ever see me again, but I've come too far to start over. So just remove whatever's not wrong with me and I'll get out of your hair. And so they were like, fine, but if we go in, we're not talking about this afterwards if there's nothing in there. And I'm like, wow, okay, I'm your patient, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but whatever. And I'm 29. I'm just trying to get help. So the surgeon goes in, and on July 13th, surgeon goes in, he opens my breast, and he is like blown away by what he sees. And he closed me up. He goes into the waiting room, and my mom and my fiance at the time was there. And he said, I've never seen this before. And they said, I think it's cancer, but I've never seen it before. We're going to send it off for pathology. And so for 2 days, they sat on knowing that I could have cancer without telling me. And on July 15th, I went back for my appointment. This doctor cleared his whole schedule. And we waited like 2 hours to see him because he was trying to get rid of all his patients because he wanted to tell me that I had breast cancer. But he was ready to take care of it now. And he was willing to operate to take care of it now. And I said, okay, had to process it. And I said, you didn't believe me. And you want me to trust you to remove something you don't even know what it is? I'm like, no, I can't do that. And I remember laying on that table, and the nurse, she was so sweet. She said, you could always get a second opinion. And I thought, that's right. And I said, pack my stuff up. I'm going to go get a second opinion. And that second opinion saved my life. This doctor was diagnosing me in my records. He diagnosed me with DCIS, and he said it was negative, but did not understand triple negative. He just knew it was negative to hormones. And his recommended treatment for me was a lumpectomy after receiving radiation treatment. And that's what he was going to do for me starting that day.
Boy, how maddening. I mean, first of all, let's go back to what your doctor said every time you came in there, and it was painful. And she kept telling you, it's okay. It's just a cyst.
You're too young.
But that it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That part really bothers me because you were in pain.
Right.
So that part, if it's a cyst, okay, fine.
Right.
But you were in pain. And that part is not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what sticks out to me from the
Right.
very beginning, is that she blew you off saying that it's okay, even though you were in pain every time you came in there.
Right.
That is right. I just feel like that is
and
so
as a doctor,
yeah.
If I'm in pain, aren't you looking to figure out what the source of the pain is?
Yeah.
At least be curious. If she was just curious, if she was just even at all curious as to, well, why is her breast doing that? Even if she didn't know, well, why is her? It's growing now. Well, that's interesting. The skin did get thicker. Like, I was there literally every 2 weeks. So it's not as if she saw me in January and then saw me again in April. But
Right.
she saw me multiple times in January, multiple times in February, multiple times. She saw the progression, but she was never curious to what was happening.
And
That blows my mind.
had you known, well, I mean, of course, now we know what kind of doctor she was, but
Mm.
had you thought about it before you went to the surgeon and had the nurse tell you, when he was going to take it out, um, and the nurse told you that you could get a second opinion, you could have done a second opinion way back before, right? I mean, I kept thinking to myself,
Seriously.
why are you keeping on going to this doctor, But here's the thing. When we're younger like that, I mean, you happened to be lucky enough that you had been working for City of Hope and,
Right.
in that space, so that
Right.
you had these buzzwords, if you will, or,
Right.
mammogram, ultrasound, if you see anything abnormal, you had that knowledge. So many other people
Correct.
don't have that knowledge. So
I
they
know.
would never have known to really necessarily ask for a mammogram or an ultrasound. But I just feel like, had you thought about it because most people, when they go to their doctor, they're like,
Hmm.
you want to trust them, right? Because
Exactly.
they're doctors. But at that time, you had one that you really couldn't trust. And
Hmm.
luckily you had a voice and that you kept on going in. So that's
Right.
something that I want my audience who's never been diagnosed, because that's who I try
Hmm.
to really reach, are those people who
That's
have never
good.
been diagnosed at any age, to hear you on this,
Yes,
because it's so
absolutely.
important to speak up and to recognize the signs and to recognize that it is okay for you to question your doctor, and it
Yes,
is okay to ask for a second and third and fourth opinion if needed.
absolutely. Absolutely. And here's the thing. So I think about that now. Okay, 20 years later, how long would I today entertain this doctor? I would have been gone, but I know better, right? But at 29, I had just gotten onto my own insurance policy and I was going to the doctor. I didn't have my mom with me going to the doctor. I was just coming off of trying to stand on my own little 2 feet, had the job. So you really don't know to switch the doctor right away. You didn't, there's just a lot you just don't know because you haven't lived it long enough to know it. And the one thing I did know was I did not want to have to start over with somebody else. And so that's what I think kept driving me to, if I show up enough, persistence, if I show up enough, you're going to do something about it. And if I didn't know anything else, I knew that if I just kept showing up, eventually you're going to get tired of me and you're going to do something about it. And she literally walked in the room one time and saw me and was like, oh, literally. And I said, I don't even care if you're disgusted with me. That did not faze me. Do something about my situation. And literally, this lady probably could not stand the looks of me at all because I kept coming back. But in my mind, when I was a kid, when I got sick, you go to the doctor, they give you medicine and you get better. That's what I know. I don't know what my mom went through. I don't know what she talked about or what. That's what I knew. And so now as a young adult, I'm going to the doctor for answers. You're supposed to be able to give me some answers to help me so that I can figure out what to do next. And that wasn't the case. She didn't know. And I'm not even mad that she didn't know about it. I'm more, my feelings were hurt because she didn't even care.
Right.
She wasn't even curious. And because of my age, completely dismissed me. And I just think, how do you sleep at night when you would literally dismiss someone despite what you see
Mhm.
is not normal? She touched it. It's nothing normal about my situation. And yet she still labeled me too young. And that for her was enough. And that's what's frustrating.
Was she older than you? I mean, of course she was older
Not much.
Oh, okay.
She was probably like in her early 50s, late 40s, early 50s. So she wasn't
older than you. Yeah. The
Yeah.
authority, and she had that kind of power trip. So did you ever go back to her and tell her?
Oh, we ended up trying to file suit for her, but we couldn't because I lived. And so they ended up firing her or letting her go from the facility that I was at.
Oh.
And then she ended up opening her own practice. So I didn't know that. And I was like, you could
But she
either
knows. She knows.
She knows. And the surgeon knew. The beautiful thing about the surgeon was after the fact, he actually reached back to me and he apologized.
Oh.
And he said he has changed. He changed the way in which he treats and engages with his patients because of that experience. He said, I listen to them now because he had no idea what impact he had. And then in return, my experience had such an impact on him and every patient thereafter. He's like, I listen to my patients now. I talk to them. I understand them. I take in what they're saying into consideration. And that blessed me so much because just think when you're hurting and you're sick, you just want to be heard. I need you to hear where I'm coming from so that we can then figure out what to do next. You don't have to have all the answers, but care enough about me to know I'm having pain and let's try to figure it out together. And I actually saw him a couple times afterwards at that because it was a smaller clinic. And I went back to see him and I would go back and visit him and say hi and everything because I appreciated the fact that he owned it and he apologized and he was genuine about it. And so that was great.
That's powerful. That's very powerful.
That's so powerful, right? As opposed to the doctor, I don't know where she's at. And I had to make myself not even think about her and just continue to live my life. Because some people say, oh, could you find her? I even forgot her name. I needed to forget her name because I couldn't do it. And I needed to make sure my mental health was good so that I could fight and do what I need to do.
Right.
So I could
It's
live.
amazing how some people just can't apologize or, don't take ownership of it. That surgeon is to be commended for sure. For sure. That impacted his life big time.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And back to the surgeon, he wasn't an oncologist. So his plan to treat me was from his experience and I'm sure he consulted a few people or whatever may have been, I don't know. But his plan would have killed me. And he wouldn't have even realized that. Because with inflammatory breast cancer, first of all, radiation, no chemo. He did not recommend chemo. And with inflammatory breast cancer, that's a death sentence. And I ended up getting diagnosed with late stage triple negative inflammatory breast cancer. I had to undergo chemotherapy. I had to have a radical right mastectomy. And then I had to have radiation. I followed up with another mastectomy on my left side. And I mean, I have had over 10 surgeries.
Oh, wow.
And his original treatment plan for me was a lumpectomy, radiation, and then a lumpectomy, and she'll be fine.
Yeah.
The second opinion literally saved my life because he just didn't know. And I think after he discovered that I had cancer, he was trying to make good on the fact that he too dismissed me. So I think his intentions were pure. It's just the treatment was wrong.
Right. He didn't know.
He didn't know.
So, had your doctor had she taken it seriously, I wonder what stage you would have been.
I have all the sizes. I would have been like stage 1. Inflammatory breast cancer at stage 1.
Mm-hmm.
No one gets diagnosed at stage 1 for inflammatory breast cancer.
Because don't they call that the
That's
silent?
insane.
Don't they call that
It's a silent killer.
the silent? Yeah. Because that part, I mean, you said that, there might have been a lawsuit, but you lived, thankfully, that you lived.
Yes,
Um,
I'll take it.
but gosh darn it. This is what
Mhm.
we need people to do is when they're going to get breast cancer, because it's a pretty good chance that people will get breast cancer with the statistics that are out there, 1 in 8
Right.
women, right? And
Mhm.
more younger women are getting it. Um, the idea
Right.
is to get it at stage 0, hopefully, right?
Right.
But has she
Exactly.
taken you seriously? And how does she sleep at night, knowing that it could have been way earlier than what ended up happening? I'm
Yeah,
really
and
sorry
that
you went through that.
and, everything for a purpose. Because honestly, when I go back and look at my medical records, because I had to pull everything because I wanted to make sure I had all of it. I thought, and after surviving and doing advocacy, and you read, I literally, it was so small that would have been a great foundation for study, for research, to be able to figure out, because by the time I went to City of Hope to get my treatment, the history of inflammatory breast cancer, like the percentage of survival changed from 1% to 5% between, I think it was between 2003 and 2005. So the survival rate was only 1% at first, because they weren't detecting it because it didn't have a mass. It wasn't on the ultrasounds and mammogram as a mass because of how it grows. It starts in the skin and it moves inward. So doctors were missing it. By the time I was diagnosed, the survival rate was up to 5%. And so I had a 5% chance of surviving something that they were still trying to figure out, where's this thing coming from and how is it starting? And I had all of the symptoms present. Like, that would have been incredible information
Mhm.
for research, for studying the life of inflammatory breast cancer. How is it starting? What does it look like? How can we figure out how to treat it or catch it, whatever the case may be? Because I don't know anybody. I've not met anyone who has been diagnosed prior to stage 3. Everyone that I know has come in after stage 3. And that by that time, they've already fought, they've already gone to the doctor, they've had the mammograms, they've gone through the ultrasounds and all of that, and nothing was a red flag for the doctor. And then finally it's like, oh my gosh, this is something. And then they discover it. And by that time, they're stage 3B.
Right. That's scary.
So, and mine was in my lymph nodes. It was in my lymph nodes and it had gone outside of my lymph nodes, which I was originally diagnosed as stage 4, but it did not spread, which thank God it did not spread. So they were able to get all the cancer cells out. They took my lymph nodes out and I had no evidence of disease. But by that time, that was 7 months later. Actually, no, I had that surgery back in December. So I was they found the cancer in July. I didn't have the full surgery till December, but I started chemo in August. So it's
So,
crazy.
wow, I'm just blown away. I'm just still just reeling about that doctor. And that's scary that it's hard to be detected, there's nothing that seems to be a red flag until it's a lot later down the road. So did you say you do not have a family history?
I don't.
Don't.
I don't. I don't have a family history. I was tested for the BRCA test, and I actually tested for that twice. So when I was first diagnosed, they tested to see if I carried any genes,
Mhm.
the genes for inflammatory or breast cancer or whatever, BRCA test. And then I actually retested because technology has advanced since then, and science has advanced. And I retested about 5 years ago, and still nothing.
So, okay, I want to get into something here. First of all, we're going to
Yeah.
talk about infertility because that is something that you had some challenges, yes?
Yes,
Can
absolutely.
you share with us what the challenges were and are?
So, well, when I was diagnosed, so after I was diagnosed and I started treatment, I was told I would not be able to have children because the treatment was so aggressive that it was going to obliterate my eggs. And so I went through treatment. I went into my menopause, which is normal for breast cancer treatment. My body stayed in menopause as most people do. And they say typically your body will come out of menopause after a certain time. And so my husband and I were like, you know what? So I was engaged before getting diagnosed. I got married in the middle of treatment.
Oh
My
my,
husband married me bald and all. And so that's a whole other story. And so then I was told not to have children, at least for the first couple of years, because if they did, then if and the cancer came back, it would come back more aggressive than the first round. So we were like, fine, we won't do that. But I was also told I wouldn't be able to have children. So they were trying to protect me from having to have an accidental pregnancy. So my husband and I decided, we'll just adopt. We're not even going to worry about it. I want to live and be with him and we'll figure it out. And we figured God would work it all out. We weren't going to worry about it. And so for us, fortunately, we stuck to the plan. I was able to get through treatment and wait a couple of years till treatment was completed. And then almost to the date of when they told me if I did get pregnant, this would be ideal. My body had been in menopause the whole time, and then it came out of menopause. And then we were like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I ended up getting pregnant to the day almost, it seems like. I had my son. I was able to carry him full term. And then after I had him, my body went back into menopause. And I've been in menopause since. And so I was in menopause starting at 29. I came out at about 32. Yeah, end of 31. And then I got pregnant, had him, and then my body's been in menopause since I was 33. And so he is our miracle child. We were of the mindset that we would not have any children. The treatment was going to make me infertile, and adoption was our plan, not even our backup plan. It ended up being our first plan. And fortunately for us, we were able to have a son, and I was only able to have one kid. My body went into menopause and never came back out. And so that's our journey with our son. And just even with the aggressive treatment, having the opportunity to be able to carry him full term has been such a blessing for us.
really? Oh
Yeah, that's
boy.
our journey with trying to face what to do. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Miracle
Yeah.
baby. It's like menopause. So it's like, okay,
Yes,
you
he
have a
is.
chance now. Do-do. Oh gosh, what a story. What a
Right.
story. Well, I would really like to know what you're doing right now, like in your survivorship. What are you doing? Who is Kommah now?
Oh man, this lady is crazy. So now that I um on the other side, I started when I first got diagnosed, even before our son, I started a nonprofit organization to help people going through cancer treatment. I wanted to give back. Like I said, I was beating the ground. I was making friends with any and everybody, trying to figure out how do I help people in treatment so that for one, they could advocate for themselves. And for two, that they could afford to get through treatment. One of the things I experienced when I was going through treatment was sitting in waiting rooms with people who could not afford to actually get treatment. And not so much as the actual treatment, but they couldn't afford the gas to get there. They couldn't afford the food to feed their family. They couldn't afford to the water, bottled water or snacks when they were in there. I mean, I couldn't believe it. For me, I had an army of people. My fiance, he was my fiance at the time. He literally had a list of people and rotations tagging in and out and meals prepped and people brought me clothes. Like I didn't want for anything. And I sat in rooms with people who had nothing. And so we started the organization for those individuals who needed help just to get through treatment. And all I could think of was, you should not have to choose to die because you can't afford to live. And I sat next to a mama who was trying to figure out if she was going to go to her next treatment or if she was going to buy groceries for her kids and make sure they had school clothes. And I was like, she should not have to make that choice. That's not right. And so we had this organization. And although I had breast cancer, um, inflammatory breast cancer, it was actually called Kommah Inflammatory Breast Cancer Foundation. That's a mouthful. It was meant to be a legacy for me because the one thing we hadn't touched here was I was only given a 2-year survival rate, a 5% chance to survive 2 years. So this was our way of giving back, and it was supposed to be a legacy project for my family once I passed on. And so the hope was I would lead it, and then when I passed away, they would carry it on. Fortunately, I'm still here.
You're here.
And I was able to be the executive director of it, founder and executive director of it we had it for 9 years. And we just helped thousands of people just get through treatment. And it didn't matter what cancer they had. There's no right cancer. Feeding your kids and making sure you can get to and from treatment was our priority. So I did that for 9 years. Then I realized my son was my priority. And so I had to take a sabbatical, and I stepped back because I was out speaking and I was traveling the country and I was loving every moment of it, but I was missing my son grow up. And this was my miracle child. And it made no sense that I was out there in front of everybody else and all he saw was the back of my head. So with that being the case, I took a break and I raised my son and was at PTA, and I was at everything for him. Well, now he's 16 and he is like, Mom, you can go ahead and jump back into what you love. And so with that, I'm back. I'm back trying to figure out where are we now in this fight against cancer and advocating and empowering people. I wrote 2 books. One is Silver Lining. Like you mentioned, cancer was the best, worst thing that ever happened to me because it really did change my life for the better. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but it changed it for the better. And so that is my memoir. That's my story. And it also talks about, we did attempt to adopt and our failed adoption and on the different journeys we've been through. And then I did a devotional book as well for the busy woman because I'm just busy, but I do need time for my devotions. And so I've written those books. I'm out speaking again. I'm doing keynotes. I'm facilitating events and just trying to get back into the community, to be back with the people where I originally started, where I felt I have a natural place and a comfortable position in is within the community, helping, advocating, supporting, being resourceful, and just really living life and not missing life.
I love that.
Because we can miss it.
Yes.
And I don't want to miss it.
I love that. And I love that your husband, obviously, he loved you so much and you got married and when you were bald, and that must have been so cute.
Yes.
Tell me, did you get married bald, or did you have like a wig or a turban or what? Tell me all the things.
So I had a wig. I had a friend of mine. She actually had a wig line. And so she brought me a wig. I had a long flowy wig, but we do have pictures where I was bald before, like where I'm in the dress and ready. But we got married, and that story is interesting because it was between treatments, because it was already planned before I got diagnosed, and everyone thought we would cancel, and we didn't want to cancel it, and you weren't going to get a refund back. And the only challenge we had was I couldn't walk. I was bedridden through treatment. So I would go into treatment and then I would be wheeled out and I would be down for 2 weeks. And then I would walk the day before treatment, right back into treatment, and I'm down. So that was my treatment cycle. And so the challenge was, how am I going to get married when I can't walk? And so, and of course, we picked our location before we got married. It had 6 staircases
Oh
leading
boy.
to where we're supposed to get married. Isn't that fun? And so the plan was I had my cousins and brother-in-law who were going to carry me down. They were going to take turns carrying me down these flights of stairs so that I could get to the altar where we were getting married. And I refused for that to happen. And fortunately, the Lord is good. I was able to walk that day and I made it down every stair. I was wiped out by the end of the night, but I did it in my own strength. And we sat down and got married seated because I couldn't stand, but I still walked. And that was amazing. But I did have a long Floyd wig on, although I was bald. And it was amazing. He is my soulmate. And he committed to those vows before he even said I do. And he was like, as long as I have you, I have you. You need to know that. And now we're actually going to be celebrating 20 years in October.
Oh, very nice. We just had our 20 year in June.
Oh, yay.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome.
And that's the other thing is that, like I was diagnosed when I was 54. We had been married. We were just about to have our 17th wedding anniversary. So, you are once again the second person in the last couple of weeks that I spoke to who was she had been married for a year. So very, very new. And I told her, I said, so like, he was like, well, you were really serious in sickness and health, right? And then, 1 year after she was married, she got her cancer and she was about your age. Yeah. Very interesting. I think I saw him in the background. Is that the amazing man?
Yep. That's him. He walked right through the camera. Yeah. I was like trying to turn the computer.
Tell him that I just think that's amazing. And I think it's great how much you do in your survivorship and your, forethought on how you wanted to make sure that you didn't miss your son growing up. Yeah. And again, that's one of the things that we have to recognize, that if we need to take a break from something so that we can do something that's more important and at least take care of our health, that's such good stuff there. So I have and I'm going to ask you one more question before we disconnect, but I've got all of your contact information here. And then I have your book link and Strings of Pearl, Seeking God's intentionality in our lives.
For your life.
Yes, that's great. So is there a big piece of advice? And I kind of feel like you've given us so much advice anyway, but what kind of big piece of advice can you give for people who've never been diagnosed?
Okay, that's good. I actually thought about this and I actually wrote something down. And so here's what I got. I'm gonna read it because this is how I was feeling. Know your body, trust yourself, and always fight to be heard. Also, second opinions could be a matter of life or death for you. Even if we trust the doctor who makes the diagnosis. In my case, I did not. But even if you do trust the doctor that makes the diagnosis, that doesn't mean they fully understand the treatment plan for that diagnosis. So you need to know yourself, but you need to trust that it is okay to seek the help you need outside of the immediate environment you're in. Oftentimes people get diagnosed and they want to move now. And they're so afraid that they're going to lose time. But in so many cases that I know, so many people who had to get second opinions, and I'm not just even cancer. I know people who are getting second opinions. A friend of mine, little girl, they misdiagnosed her and they sought a second opinion. And thank God they did, because they saved that little girl's life. It's okay. We do have time to stop and breathe and to figure out what is actually going on.
That is fantastic advice. And I feel like if people are, anyone who's listening to this, who this resonates with, because we never know who we're going to be touching when they are listening to these episodes, or any other podcast for that matter. I feel like I want to let my audience know that they can reach out to me. They can reach out to you if they need the courage, the words, what to say to their doctor when they're asking, when they're telling them that they're going to get a second opinion. And it's that key word. It's not asking. No. It's telling them. And it's not that you are being a jerk or anything like that. Nope. It's like, this is your body. And you get to take care of your body in the way that you feel that you need, because especially if you feel something that doesn't feel right.
And a confident doctor, the doctors that I've engaged with in my advocacy work and personally now, a confident doctor is not intimidated by a second opinion. They're not.
I completely agree. And I have experienced that myself, and I've interviewed a lot of people who would say the same thing. And you're absolutely right. So all you doctors out there, be confident.
Yes. We love you. We need you. Yeah. Be confident. But let's not be afraid of reassuring that this person's life is going to last a little longer.
Yeah. Well, you have such an amazing story, so inspirational, and you are doing so much in your survivorship. You seem to have a wonderful life. You're a beautiful woman, and I'm so happy you're alive.
Thank you.
That is a miracle in itself, and I just really appreciate your being here to have this conversation with me. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we disconnect?
Jamie, thank you for allowing me to come on your podcast. I think that what you're doing is amazing, and you're reaching so many people. And you're right, you don't know who's clicking on this. And so I'm praying that those who find your podcast find hope, find inspiration, and are getting the wisdom that they need when they need it.
Cool. Thank you. Well, then with that, to my audience, thank you so much again for joining me and Kommah on this episode. And we will see you next time on the next episode of Test Those Breasts. Bye for now.
Bye.
Friends, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Test Those Breasts. I hope you got some great, much needed information that will help you with your journey. As always, I am open to guests to add value to my show, and I'm also open to being a guest on other podcasts where I can add value. So please reach out if you'd like to collaborate. My contact information is in the show notes. And as a reminder, rating, reviewing, and sharing this podcast will truly help build a bigger audience all over the world. I thank you for your efforts. I look forward to sharing my next episode of Test Those Breasts.